Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, June 20th, 2018. Thank you for tuning in to the late night edition. Things kind of got away today. Just want to announce I'm a little bit of a proud coach here, but I do coach a 10U baseball team, and our boys won once again tonight. They are 8-1 on the season and are in sole position of first place and looking good for the end of the year as our tournament's coming up here soon. We will play in a city tournament and then against another town across the way for the league title. So interesting and fun times coming up for us kids, and we appreciate you guys being patient and tuning in this late hour. All right, let's get right to it. Let's take a look at some space weather news. Solar wind conditions are sitting at 421 kilometers per second with a proton of 8.4. So the density right now is moderate. And we are looking at our star right now, AR-2715, AR-2713, and AR-2714. Now, we've heard for a few days now that 13 and 14 regions have been decaying and it's going to go away, but yet we still see them. And now this new sunspot, which, by the way, thanks to the Starman for showing me a video of the birth of 2715. And he's right, we don't get to watch these happen on our usual basis. So with that being said, we are now looking at AR-2715. It's been around now for 24 hours, and it states here that this is growing rapidly and could soon pose a threat for C-class solar flares. And guys, I just looked at the solar proton flux. We definitely see a minor C-class flare that cracked from this, and I will show you that in the SDO live. By the way, let's give you a perspective here of how big these sunspots are. The Earth is to scale. If we have the Earth in front of the sun, looking at these sunspots, just to give you an idea of how big these sunspots are compared to our planets. So massive. Taking a look at our KP indices for the day, we are at 1 and a quiet 2 as well for the 24-hour max. And looking at the SDO, it is busy right now. We've got the 3 sunspot regions. By the way, we're looking at sunspot 41 number, okay? So with that being said, let's take a look at our SDO in motion. And I want to point out, here is AR-2715, and right there at the end of this run here, we should see the minor C-class solar flare that we see right there at the very end. I'll move this out of the way. So 2715 is new. We have 2713 moving away from Earth and late forming 2714 moving to the western limb. But take a look at this. We've got a pretty active region right here on the eastern limb, and then this coronal hole. Now, I mentioned something last week, and I was watching this area right here. When you see the indentation, that is to show you that, like right here is the indentation in the corona. You know there is a coronal hole in that region. Once this begins to fill back out like it is right now, that means that coronal hole is closing and the corona is more stable. But anyway, looking at this active region and possibly looking at a very possible setting here of 4 sunspot groupings with AR-2716 possibly being named in the coming days. This is a massive active region. The activity that we're seeing right now reminds me a lot like August and September, except this AR-2715 is definitely something to watch in my opinion. When NOAA comes out and says right away that we're looking at C-class flares within 24 hours, to me that shows that this is going to be an active sunspot and it's something to keep our eyes on. So with 2715 crackling with C-class flares right now, we have a coronal hole forming in the equatorial region, and just how thin this is and the length of it as well. With all the activity on the sun, I'd say it's a good idea that we stay active and alert for any kind of quakes within the next 7 to 10 days, somewhere in the 7.0 range or higher, possibly even multiple ones. So just basing this off what I've seen in the past and what to look for with these situations. It was a high B class flare. I believe it might have been, but it looked like it just barely touched the sea area. Well, and Rob is one of our more precise people as well. Him and Starman definitely give us precise numbers. So we appreciate the info in the chat as well. Very important to know. So not yet C-class flares, but pretty darn close. And I'll go ahead and show you really quick the proton flux. And forgive me for scrolling so fast. All right, so here we got the solar proton flux. And right here is what Rob is talking about being a B, and he is indeed right, but we are splitting hairs, folks. It is getting close to that C action, so we will keep our eyes on this. Again, it wouldn't surprise me to see some more earthquake activity. We know 2 more volcanoes to speak of tonight as well. We'll get to that here in just a second. There is a look at ACE. Our solar wind speed has been slow and steady today, but slowly declining also to the 400 kilometers per second, as that solar wind speed, that solar wind that we were going through is now past us. But we will be on the lookout for the 23rd of June is when the next scheduled solar wind stream is due to hit the Earth. Take a look at our TSI reading for June 12th, 2018. We came back with a reading of 1360.766. So we're doing that fluctuation between the 1360.6 values and the 1360.70 still to this day. Not much major in the change of increase or decrease to really speak of here. And speaking of volcanic activity to increase, want to report real fast that the Watchers has posted a story today talking about how Chilean authorities increased the alert level and their volcano here, and I'm going to say Puehu Cordon Calle volcano to a yellow, and that's a 2 out of a 4. On June 20th, 2018, increased seismic activity detected under the volcano since the beginning of the month. The last eruptive phase of this volcano started on June 4th of 2011 and actually went all the way through April of 2012 with a VI5. And according to reports there, we are looking at between 272 earthquakes have been observed between the 1st and the 15th of June. 48 which were classified as long period earthquakes associated with dynamics of fluids inside the volcano. 215 earthquakes were volcano tectonic associated, the movement, the injection or withdrawal of magma. Now, these were located about 0.4 miles west of the center of the 2011 eruption. So they are now using historical data to kind of track what's going on right now. And again, they're in a moderate stage of the alert. It's been raised to a 2. It's in a yellow. So nothing imminent yet. But take a look at the article here on the Watchers. It gives you the great details of the area. As always, the Watchers does a fine job when it comes to reporting on anything that's abroad from the U.S. for sure. And even the U.S. stuff. Worldwide. They're just worldwide. Let's just say that. And another eruption observed at the Krakatau volcano in Indonesia. The eruption produced ash that rose a few hundred meters before it dissipated. This was reported by Volcano Discovery. Whether this is a sign of a new, more robust eruptive phase at the volcano is too early to say, but clearly shows that the volcano is restless and could be ready for a new eruption in the near to medium-term future, weeks, months from now. So, not days, but weeks to months. Thermal radiation has increased since March of 2018 and is at a low, moderate level, also suggesting that magma is near the surface. It says here, a strong thermal signal was observed at the volcano on February 17th of 2017. This activity was followed by intense Strombolian Vulcan type activity at the summit on February 19th, 2017. Its previous eruption occurred on March 31st, 2014, where that was just a VEI-1. Once again, thanks to the Watchers for all the great great geological information on the region. Link will be in the description. So 2 more volcanoes to look at now as possibly heading into new eruption phases. And let's take a look at the rainfall so far in the United States. And I'm going to focus on the main areas here for right now. Not that the Northeast is not important, but let's take a look here first in the Midwest and the Plain States: Kansas, Iowa, Wisconsin, Kansas, parts of northern Kansas, and then you got back into South Dakota and Montana looking at some heavy rain. These are rain totals in the past 72 hours. Now, here, and I'll get to Texas here in a second, but I just want to show you, here's how much of that rain has just fallen in the last 24 hours. So this is definitely a 3-day total, but we've seen the most rain in South Dakota out of this 24-hour period, plus Nebraska and parts of central Kansas and northern Kansas. And then I want to move here down to Texas. This is their 24-hour rain totals. And down here, they're suggesting that we've seen around 10 inches of rain or more. Now, that's just the 24-hour rain total. Let's go ahead and take a look at the past 72 hours in this region here. And look at that. So parts near Houston are looking at between 5 and 7 inches of rainfall total. The lighter blue colors suggest over 10 inches of rain, and we're seeing that at the Texas-Louisiana border, also near the San Antonio and other parts of southern Texas. So this storm is still hanging around, and according to this story here, we may not even see it clear out until Friday. So it says multiple days of torrential downpours have taken a toll on Texas this week and resulted in incidents of flash flooding and water rescues. I'll play a little bit of this video real quick. And we got this superstorm cell with the lightning here. Very ominous clouds, very dark. Residents of Houston got a taste of the incoming weather pattern when a record-breaking 1.26 inches of rain fell on Sunday, nearly 5 times as much as it had rained so far in June. This set a new daily rainfall record and also took second place for wettest June day in recorded Houston history. As of late morning hours on Tuesday, the Houston area has received between 1 and 4 inches of rain from this tropical disturbance thus far. In just 48 hours, ending at 8 a.m. this morning, Beaumont, Texas received just over 11 inches of rain, just as a fire hose of heavy rain from the Gulf of Mexico lingered in the region. In 7 hours Tuesday morning, 8.73 inches of rain fell on Alice, Texas, which is located just west of Corpus Christi. Alice has received more than 10 inches of rain from this storm as well. Greg Abbott ordered the State Operations Center to elevate its readiness level as heavy rain and storms continue to impact this region. Texas is not a stranger to this type of severe weather, and our emergency personnel are ready and well prepared to respond to this. Our number one priority is safety and well-being of Texans. I encourage everyone in the affected areas to stay safe and heed the warnings from local officials. In general, storm total 48 inches of rain is forecasted with local amounts of 12 to 18 inches in parts of Texas. Any one storm could drop several inches of rain in the area in just a couple of hours. And Wednesday night, heaviest rain is likely to focus Brownsville and lower Rio Grande Valley to Corpus Christi and Victoria, Texas. This is the far southern part of Texas. Some localized flooding is also possible in parts of Austin, San Antonio, and parts of southwestern Louisiana, where I already said at the border, where 2 to 4 inches of rainfall are expected. These are going to continue, it looks like, through Thursday into Friday, and downpours will also begin to expand northeastward into Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and western Tennessee. It says here that we expect one batch of rainfall to draw northward towards Mississippi Valley, while another batch of moisture is drawn westward into Mexico during Thursday and Friday. So this system does appear that it's going to move out finally in late Thursday, early Friday, but still lots of moisture in that region. It's talking about while tropical in nature, spanning over the course of several days, this rain event will not compare to the devastating 3 to 5 feet of rain that Harvey brought to the region last August. So they continue to remind people of that. And so far, thank God, we are possibly going to see areas that get a foot of rain. And I can tell you this, 5 inches of rain is enough. The flooding from that is enough. And some areas right now are guaranteed to get at least 8 inches to a foot of rain so far in these last 3 days, with more on the way, possibly. We'll go ahead and look at the radar as well. But, I thought it was important to show how much rain coverage that the country has endured just in the last 3 days. When you go back and look at this map, and the only area that's truly dry is the Four Corners region of the United States that is in an exceptional drought as well. Other than that, we're looking at large amounts of rainfall throughout the entire country and just trace amounts in the Southwest as well. We'll leave the link in the description. And while we're on the topic of heavy rains, we're looking at more storms. Rounds of rain and thunderstorms will target the areas from the plains of Ohio, South and Mid-Atlantic states into late week, talking about Thursday and Friday. Some storms could turn severe with damaging winds and large hail, again being the main threats. Flash flooding will also be a concern in any areas where clusters of storms stall for a period of a few hours or more. Repeated rounds of rain and thunderstorms will continue to soak areas from the plains to the Midwest and portions in the east as well through late week. A slow-moving frontal system is interacting with an abundant moisture in place across the regions as it moves eastward through Friday. In addition, an upper-level area of low pressure will slide eastward along that front, adding additionally instability to the atmosphere and aiding in development of showers and storms. Localized bouts of flooding may occur in the next few days where rain and thunderstorms soak a particular area for too long of a time. Now, this is easy. This area, I just showed you the map. Okay, look at here in Iowa and Illinois and Missouri, and here we are already saturated grounds. Okay, this area has got enough. And then you get into Ohio, and they're starting to accumulate as well. Indiana as well. Kentucky and Tennessee probably could absorb a little bit more rain, along with Alabama and Georgia as well. But really, we have a lot of saturation already on the ground. And looking at this current map right now, we see rain in the areas that's already has saturation and more to come. Here's our severe weather threat for tomorrow night. A good swath from Peoria, Illinois, all the way into I believe Greenville, Little Rock, Arkansas, Texarkana, and then areas Lubbock and Amarillo. You'll also to get severe weather, and even up in parts of Montana and the far northwest corner of Wyoming, also looking at severe weather threat as well. And this is the rainfall that is forecasted to fall through Friday in this region. So already most areas looking at between 1 to 3 inches of rain. Add another 1 to 3 inches of rain to those soaked areas in Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and parts of South Dakota and Arkansas, as well as Missouri. Taking a couple of articles tonight. One is from Science Alert. Worrying new energy chart shows the world is not even close to kicking coal. And this article speaks truth on so many levels. And I apologize for the name calling here, but it says, fair warning, if you're one of those liberal, tree-hugging hippies who wants the world to move away from burning fossil fuels, these graphs are going to depress you. Now, Carly, I appreciate your knowledge on the article and writing, but this is the example here. Let's try not to attack these people who are actually just wanting to protect the environment. Let's face it, these folks that we are labeling tree-hugging hippies are trying to take care of their environment. And therefore, I think it's a little low blow. Maybe I'm being too opinionated here. But, having a conversation with a gentleman today who believes in global warming, but his opinions and views were different than those of the ones of the past. This guy looks at everything through an environmental situation, and it kind of gets me to think. These folks just want to take care of the planet they live on. So, again, yes, if you're into the crowd that doesn't want to see fossil fuels burnt, this will depress you. Because it appears that despite the recent and extraordinary growth in renewable energy forms, the world just can't seem to quit coal. And it says here, 3 charts produced and published by an oil and energy giant BP, which releases a statistical review of world energy every year, has revealed that after several years of free fall, the global consumption and production of coal is making a comeback. I'm not going to read this whole article, but I did want to show these graphs. And I think it's important here. We saw coal production way down in 2016, and then we seen it go up tremendously in 2017. Coal consumption also went up a little bit in 2017 compared to 16 and 15, and still way down from 2011. Now, the point I'm reaching here, 2017, we saw a very cold winter in the beginning of 2017 winter, 2018, 2017 winter. And we've already read you stories from the southern hemisphere in Australia where they are firing up coal plants to avoid blackouts. Well, that happened here in the Northeast as well. And I'm sure it happened in other places like Canada and other parts of the country, Northwest United States, and the Western European countries as well. But the thing that we keep trying to provide people with facts about the man-made actual percentage and what man is actually contributing and how big of a factor is man. And, you know, here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, we don't believe man has anything to do with the warming or the cooling. These are all based on cycles. That CO2 has become more and more known now as a greening effect and not so much a warming effect. Let's think about this for a minute, folks. Let's just pretend, let's go on the same page with the global warmist. And they say that all the cloud coverage from the CO2 is trapping in the heat. Okay? Well, let's pretend that that's true for a minute. But what do you account for when you have all this cloud coverage that's holding in old heat and all this other TSI that's trying to reach our surface, but all the cloud coverage reflects a lot of it back into space? So now the Earth is intaking. Look, we both know the sun controls the weather, okay? Meteorologists tell us every night when the sun goes down, the fuel for the thunderstorms go away too, because the sun gives the energy to these storms. So, like I said, if we're going to pretend that all the cloud coverage is holding all the warmth in, which is keeping the temperature warm on Earth, well, that's fine. But how do you account for new warmth when we have so much cloud coverage right now that the sun can't do its thing? And in the meantime, while we lack TSI and energy from our star, we start to see a decrease in water temperatures, which, again, ocean temperatures are everything when it comes to climate. And I'm learning that more and more these days than ever. So not just solar cycles here, but, you know, we have to watch the oceans as well. So that's the second factor. So when the old warmth is gone and things begin to cool, pretty much it's like a free fall from there until one of two things happens, of course, and that's the sun giving out more TSI, more output. And unfortunately, we know right now that our sun is heading into a minimum, despite what it's doing right now with the 3 active regions, possibly 4 by the end of this week. Despite what it's doing right now. It did this last year in August and September, and then it got quiet again, just like it's doing right now. We're going to see these little sputters right before the minimum kicks in. I know I was talking about a forecast that I heard that we were going to be looking at spotless sun from June of this summer until April of next year. Obviously, that is far from the truth, as June has been probably the most active month since August of 2017. But all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to level with you guys here. And when you think about CO2 and what it actually does for our planet. It feeds our plants, first of all. It feeds all the vegetation. And people don't take in the accountability with carbon consumption as well. And that really kind of leads me to this here. Existing studies may have misgauged how carbon is distributed around the world. I'm not going to read the entire article, but I'll read a little bit. This is very interesting. Ocean's heat cycle shows that atmospheric carbon may be headed elsewhere. As humans continue to pump the atmosphere with carbon, it's crucial for scientists to understand how and where the planet absorbs and naturally emits carbon. A recent study shows in the journal Nature Geosciences examined the global carbon cycle and suggests that the existing studies may have misgauged how carbon is distributed around the world, particularly between the northern and southern hemispheres. These results could change projections of how, when, and where the currently massive levels of atmospheric carbon will result in environmental changes such as ocean acidification. Now, by re-examining ocean circulations and considering the carbon-moving power of rivers, the study authors suggest that as much as 40% of the world's atmospheric carbon absorbed by the land needs to be reallocated from existing estimates. In particular, the Southern Ocean encircling Antarctica and forests in the Northern Hemisphere, while still substantially absorbers and sinks of carbon, may not take up as much as scientists have figured. The carbon story we got is more consistent with what people have observed on the ground, said the first author Laurel Resplendy, an assistant professor of the Geosciences and Princeton Environmental Institute. Rivers have largely overlooked. We need to better constrain the transport of carbon from the land to ocean by rivers. Otherwise, this carbon is attributed to the land sink and is missing from ocean sink. If carbon goes into the land or into the ocean, it doesn't have the same impact. Resplendy and her co-authors used models and field observations to find the world's oceans transport heat between the northern and southern hemisphere in the same way that carbon is transported. The transport of heat, however, is easier to absorb. By tracking this heat, researchers discovered that the ocean in the southern hemisphere is much smaller carbon sink than previously thought, and that the land at the same latitude is almost non-existent of source carbon. Kind of give you an idea here, little graph, atmosphere, ocean sink, and then, of course, land sink. And like I said, they have to re-gauge now how carbon is dispersed and allocated throughout the world. And I also wonder if some of these scientists and the people that believe in global warming, have they even thought about the amount of CO2 that plant life will absorb during this time because of the abundance of CO2. Again, NASA did a study and says that we are seeing more evidence of greening from CO2 than we are warming. And I think people really confuse carbon and CO2, and just there's so many parts to the puzzle that we just have to keep putting together until everything comes together. But we're trying to draw that picture here for you guys, and the overall, I guess, moral to this whole thing is that we do still need to see every piece to the puzzle, even though we have some pretty good looking evidence right now that supports what we believe here, the grand solar minimum, the same as you folks out there watching right now, what you guys believe in. A lot of the studies that we bring to the table, are correlating right now, but we still have lots to learn. And this to me is just another example that we still have lots to learn, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of things that haven't been thought of, and that's why we have so many hardcore global warmists out there, because they don't know otherwise. And I think right now we're digging up evidence that's being brought to the surface so everyone can get a look at this. And that's what Pruitt is trying to do at the EPA. He wants to give this transparency science a try. Some of the stuff that was used to pass EPA regulations were classified, kept from the public. Now the public will have access to look at the scientific data that's used to make these determinations. And I believe that this will favor a lot of folks who are worried about spending money and tax money on frivolous taxes such as global warming and carbon taxes. Let's take a look at another article here. I found this one a little interesting. Global warming now brought to you by the local TV weathercaster. Now, yes and no. Recently, you guys might have seen the video where I was on a live feed on Weather Nation, and this guy was just giving a random Father's Day weekend forecast, and I was curious to see what he would say if he saw my question. So I asked him, what's going on in the North Atlantic? We're looking at temperatures now below baseline for a while. And he read the beginning of my question, but he didn't read the actual temperature data because I get it. He's a paid weatherman. He's got to make sure his information is accurate, so he didn't want to get too in-depth. But I found it interesting that he actually answered the question with confirming how cold the waters actually are in the Atlantic. He did mention at the end of the statement that the Mid-Atlantic was at above average temperatures, so he thought maybe it was a split, but I've got 4 to 5 graphs that will show you in the Atlantic Ocean where temperatures are well below baseline right now. So the Mid-Atlantic does not make up for any kind of balance or anything like that. Again, this guy, I commend him for even touching the question. He at least confirmed that we are seeing cold waters in the Atlantic. But you do have these weather casters, TV guys, who have been maybe a local weathercaster for, how long you think that guy Don's been in Buffalo, Mari?
Oh my God, ever since I've been in Buffalo.
So this guy's probably, and sorry, Mari doesn't have a mic. I know I get yelled at in the comments for this a lot, but Mari confirmed he's been around for at least 20 years. He's a local iconic weatherman. He's that weather guy that you grow up with, and he's a good guy. He seems like a nice fella. But he is the example of this article. And just a couple of nights ago, he posted a post on Facebook that his news station shared about how insane amounts of levels of ice were in Antarctica. And I know I told you guys about this last night too, but he is the example that this Climate Depot article is talking about, where global warming now brought to you by your local TV weathercaster. Local weathercasters have become one of the primary conduits for news on global warming. One nonprofit helped push the change. A powerful winter storm moves towards New England on January 4th, 2018. And here we go. Steve LaPointe has been a television weatherman for nearly 3 decades. For most of his career, he didn't focus much on global warming. He was skeptical about the science behind it, particularly the notion that human behavior was heating the planet. But the issue wouldn't go away, so LaPointe began to do a lot of homework, and he said reading research papers and consulting fellow meteorologists who connected him with a nonprofit, Climate Central, that spreads information on climate change. LaPointe increasingly came to realize he was wrong, that the evidence that greenhouse gases are warming in Earth is refutable. Now LaPointe routinely reports on the effects of the climate change, from escalated growth of poison ivy to a jump in the number of high pollen days, alongside his usual 7-day nightly forecast on CBS affiliate WRGB in Albany, New York. Meteorologists push for climate change awareness. It's just a scientific fact, and the more it gets talked about, the more it's normalized, LaPointe said. It gets into people's heads, and it's not this political abstruse that it could be, which I don't understand what he means by that. LaPointe's journey has been repeated by many of his peers across America. The friendly neighborhood meteorologist found in a 2010 poll to be more skeptical than the general public about global warming has rapidly evolved not only to accept climate change, but to share the news with audiences in hundreds of U.S. television markets. The key shift has been to Climate Central, a nonprofit that helped school LaPointe. The Princeton, New Jersey-based organization sponsors classes, webinars for meteorologists, and also shares real-time data graphics with TV stations. The group has reached more than 500 local TV weathercasters. My goodness. About a quarter of those working in the U.S. since it started its Climate Matters education program in 2012, and it is expanding. Bring out an example. Like I said, our local weathercaster, just like this guy here, been doing this for many decades. He's well trusted. And these guys, let me tell you, this is why it's so hard to report on the grand solar minimum in any kind of global cooling situation, because this article is absolutely right. The TV weathercasters, yes and no, are bringing the global warming nonsense to light and making it normal, so that your average Joe will always tell, oh no, it's global warming that's doing this. And I've had it happen to me already a few times. Just like the gentleman we met tonight. Nice guy. But, he's been fed the same narrative that most of you have been fed out there. Some of you refuse to look at the information. I don't know why. Some of you would rather call us names or conspiracy theorists instead of look at the information that we're providing. And I think that's what we've always been saying here at this channel for many months. Do your own research. Channels like us also put links in their description so you can read the article for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't take their word for it. Take a look at it. I noticed that all these papers that we show you have links to the studies. When they mention a new study, they'll have the link for the study. So it's not just gibberish like Al Gore. You've heard Al Gore talk about, the biggest bullshit that Al Gore really did was when he bragged and congratulated himself about the World Trade Center flooding. Okay. But see, the prediction he made was that the ice caps would melt and that sea rise would put Manhattan underwater. But yet, when they had rains from Sandy that flooded the area and then the water receded, that's what your liberalist, cult-like thinking people will do, is they will latch on to anything and savor it for as long as they can. And hey, I didn't say it had to be a long-lasting flood. I told everyone this would happen, and it happened. And that's how Al Gore played it. And people are like, wow, that Al Gore, he really knew what he was talking about. He really called that one. And it was a weird, you could still look at it like Sandy hitting New York, like that's a weird storm. But I think it's unfortunate. It's not about politics. It's not about Trump. It's not about Gore. It's just unfortunate that mainstream media seems to have an agenda that seems to favor a lot of these liberal ideas. And these liberal ideas have turned into millions of dollars of taxpayers' money being wasted on things that aren't just correct. It's bad science. It's junk science. We're paying millions of dollars for junk science. And now we have to, as if it's hard enough to try to convince people what we're bringing to the table is legit. Now you've got a report that's saying 15-fold that we have more and more news station, local news meteorologists convincing their thousands of viewers, millions of viewers in some cases, that man is causing this, and that all this extreme weather is from global warming, and all this snow and cold temperatures is from global warming. And I guess really it comes down to, you could say, well, who cares what's causing it? It's happening. But it's important to understand the science, because now you're better prepared and now you're more ready for what's to happen. Instead of cutting back on emissions and thinking that the world is going to see a change when, again, man has nothing to do with what's happening to our planet right now. The cosmic ray influx, the CO2, the particles that we already have in our atmosphere. Now you've got volcanic activity left and right, earthquakes. So there's your pure raw CO2 from earthquake eruptions of volcanoes. All that factors in. All of it. And someone said, once we get cold, does the CO2 go down? Well, yeah, naturally. You get colder temperatures, the oceans emit less CO2. So, yeah, eventually our CO2 levels will go down. as the temperatures get colder. And it's just like Casey said, many other scientists have said as well. The temperature rise first, and then you get your CO2 rise. Well, we've seen the rise. We've seen the peak of our temps. We're starting to see the temps decline. We're looking at our ocean temperatures. They are declining. And next 5 to 10 years, when ocean temps get even cooler, we will see a decline in our CO2 levels, our parts per million. It will not be in the 400s. I guarantee you that. Once, like I said, warming oceans emit the most CO2. And once those temperatures get cool enough, those levels will come back down. And I wanted to point this out real quick. An area here in Peru, 600 dead from a cold wave. And really it's due to the pneumonia that people have caught. Over 604 people have passed away in this region of Peru. Early winter. Winter begins tomorrow for them. It says more than 400 correspond to older adults and 72 to children under 5. We kind of saw an outbreak of pneumonia last year, and it got bad. In fact, the number was somewhere in the 50,000s by January. And they were counting the deaths from August through January in the U.S. of pneumonia-related deaths. And I thought, wow, they're not talking about this that much. And to me, that's a lot of people. And here we are, early winter, just like we got last year in Peru. And now we have a kind of an epidemic situation where influenza is starting like wildfire, and it's just the very beginning of their winter. In fact, like I said, it's early, and we're already looking at deaths to illness due to low temperatures that have been registered in the country. It says Lima has the highest number of influenza, followed by, it looks like, Piura, Puno, Cuzo, and Madre, Diones, and Tonka. The cold will continue, according to the information provided by the Seminole. For a reason, health experts recommend the population be vaccinated against the disease. And, that was also encouraged here in the States. People were even telling us that we were told to still get the vaccination even past February, that at any point in time this vaccination would help. And I think it did. So I'm not really one to do the whole vaccination. I suffer from diabetes. I did one this year, pneumococcal pneumonia. I did not get sick this year. Thankfully, I maybe had a minor cold here and there, but nothing horrible. But, if for those of you that don't really get into the whole vaccines, I know that Mari and her kids, our kids, are very hand washers, avid hand washers, and that's the key. And I tell you, that's what helped keep this household healthy this year for the most part. I know her daughter really took the lead in this household and demonstrated some very good practices of washing hands. This girl would come in from the grocery store, the library, the restaurant. It doesn't matter where we were, even if it was just to go outside and let the dog to go out and go to the bathroom. This girl was good about washing her hands or using hand sanitizer. So really, it's all about keeping those hands washed and just keeping surfaces clean of bacteria as much as you can. You can't get it all, but that is the best way to help yourself, I think, of keeping yourself healthy through the cold winter months. And like I said, we were fortunate for the most part. This household survived the winter without any kind of major sickness. All right, so it's flooding in Texas. Volcanoes going off everywhere. And I wanted to show you guys once again the temperature anomalies as of June 20th, looking at the East Tropical Atlantic SST, which we are still at a full degree below the baseline Celsius. All right, June 20th, we see it trending down once again. And then this is the Atlantic MDR sea surface temperature anomaly. That has crept up to just above the negative 846 range, but still trending fairly low, and it's been below the baseline since early March. Also, I want to take a look at the East Tropical Atlantic. We've seen a little bit of a rise in temperature back up to around negative 1.0, but has fallen since on June 20th back below negative 1.181 below baseline. And let's take a look here at the Caribbean anomaly. We are seeing indications right now it's on a pretty healthy trend upwards. However, if we look back here in the previous times, this is where our peak has been for the last month. So it'll be interesting to see tomorrow, the 21st or the 22nd, will this start trending downward once again like it has over the past several months. And once again, that pesky North Atlantic SST anomaly is trending back up. But again, look at where we're at. We're talking about negative 0.4. And that's where we're kind of been maintaining that baseline. So here we are on the 20th. We're almost at that negative 0.4 mark. Will we see on the 22nd or 23rd, will we see this trend back down again? And, you know, really, I saw another study, too. They were talking about fewer hurricanes for 2018. And the question was, will the Atlantic continue to remain this cool? And you would think the answer is no, because we're heading into late June, almost July. July is in my opinion, when things really start to heat up in the lower 48 and other areas that experience summer this time of year. So you would expect to see temperatures in the oceans go back above baseline. Honestly, I mean, truthfully, I seriously expect that by July or August. So we'll see. Right now, we're trending coolly. And it's interesting to watch as the later we go into June, how we're still pretty far away from baseline temperatures right now. We're just less than a month ago where you have fallen over a full degree Celsius in most parts of our oceans right now. Anywhere from 0.8 to 1.5 degrees Celsius drop in ocean sea surface temperature. Let's take a look at windy real quick. We've got that severe threat going on, heavy rain already that's hit the area of Iowa, Minnesota, Kansas, Nebraska. That area once again is getting hit as we speak, 9 p.m. Let's go ahead and put this into motion. Texas, you're going to get a regeneration of another wave of moisture, but it does not look as heavy as once forecasted. So this storm moves out Thursday, goes across Mexico into central Mexico, a much weaker storm, thankfully. Good news for you folks there in southern Texas who have already seen 8 to 10 inches of rain already. Damage is done, but watch out for northern Illinois and Indiana and parts of southeast Ohio, West Virginia, into southwest Pennsylvania, as we will have a rain threat as well going into Friday, into the weekend, and putting into motion again. This area we have to watch because you're looking at a Friday and Saturday type rain event in that area. Now, Saturday is not as heavy rainfall, but however, we still have off and on showers that will spread into the northeast. And really, after that, guys, we're looking at some active weather across the Tennessee Valley and some strange weather patterns, if you ask me, from the Central Plains up into the Northern Plains. And once again, we will see more moisture early next week in a lot of areas that have seen actually almost exactly the same days in that part of the country of this week into next week as well. So a pattern that seems to hold its course. Wisconsin, parts of Michigan, we'll see some heavier rain coming to you guys midweek next week. And Ohio Valley, once again, it gets a little bit of a break. You're back in the rain by late next week after these next few days of storms that are coming through right now. And this takes us out to the 29th. We see some Gulf moisture begin to creep in to Louisiana, and we will watch that. Now, I will say this. Ironically, I saw on Weather Action News, Piers Corbin's site, where he talks about a possible development in this very region right here that we're looking at in Louisiana, the possible low-pressure system, possibly a storm that could develop. And today, this is the first indication of that we do see moisture building up Now, if we go to our GFS, starting from now, the GFS is not really too far off from what we were looking at the European models, the moisture even in the south as well. And as this moves on through the 25th into the 26th, again, the action of the radar of all the moisture looks about the same as the European. But here we are on the 29th. GFS is not showing that development yet in Louisiana that we are seeing in the European, but moisture does begin to build in by that Saturday, and really just continuing moisture coming in from the southeast Atlantic Ocean, really. So we'll keep our eyes on it. This storm out here in the Pacific, again, that could be their third or fourth named hurricane by this point, and this is as of July 6th, 2018. So lots to keep our eyes on here, really from the Midwest, the Central Plains, the Northern Plains, the Northeast, and the Gulf. Really is worth watching the weather that we have coming through. A lot of areas have already been saturated. Our thoughts are with people out there in Houghton, Michigan. No more rain for you guys. I'm sure you've seen enough of it, and the work. I came unplugged for a minute, Mari. So anyway, I was getting up because I wanted to check in with Mari and everybody in the chat and see how we're all doing.
I am not sure how much they missed of your discussion, but I will recap for you, Jake. We were giving Radical Gardener a shout out. She mentioned, like Jake did on Sunday, she got a bit of sun poisoning. Is that what?
Yeah.
I'm not too sure how long the audio cut out.
It doesn't take that much exposure these days with the UV amounts being so high. And you know what? Magnetosphere is a lot weaker now, especially that we get closer and closer to this minimum. So the UV levels are high, and our skin is our UV meter, I think, and that how quick we all got burnt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting to peel soon. I didn't get it as bad as you.
No.
I've been, medicating him with Neosporin and aloe and whatever goodies. I just want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Sorry we're on a little late. We'll probably be on earlier. We're going to have an early show. It seems like people like the early shows, Jake.
We'll do the early show for sure. Yeah, we had the baseball game that ran a little late, and then a day in life out here in Buffalo. It's always exciting. We had a little excitement in the neighborhood when we pulled up, so gotta love that. But we appreciate you guys tuning in as late as you did. Mari, thanks again for everything that you do to help get this show off the ground every night, whether it be a technical difficulty or issue with the sound. Mari is here, lickety-split, to get this issue taken care of no matter what it is. So thank you once again. Thanks to all the subs who tuned in late tonight. Again, we appreciate you being here, our moderators. Guys, we will be back tomorrow. Do this a little earlier for you as well. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk soon.